We've attached one of the GoPros to the shot. Fortunately we got it back. It's got a light on it as well. It goes down in slow motion to start with, and you can just see the boat as it disappears out of view. And it flicks over to real time as it plummets down towards the wreck. And it lands in the aft hold. Fortunately it landed upright, and then the tide running pulled the slack water buoys and pulled the camera more upright, and you get a view of the fish. And then the slack really gets taken out of the line as the tide's running, and it eventually pulled it over. Got the camera back but lost the light. And Jamie's gone down now and picked it up. He's taking it over to the steering quadrant. That's where he tied in. And that's where it stayed until I went down and turned it off. We tried filming this over 4 separate dives so the footage and visibility will change and flip about a bit. It's the same old story, we're just struggling to get decent visibility. I couldn't find pictures of the SS Braunton, but we've got this ship's model. It's the next best thing. It's on show at the Museum of Wales, and I'll put a link to the website in the description. The website shows various close-up pictures of the model. Jamie's tied in right in the steering quadrant, would be just behind that ship's wheel at the stern of the ship there. Built in 1911 by Richardson Duck and Company at Stockton-on-Tees, SS Braunton was 120 metres long. The vessel had been built to the order of the Tatem Steam Navigation Company of Cardiff. She had engines by Blair & Co Limited. And as the vessel left the way, she was christened Braunton by Mrs W.J. Tatem, the wife of the owner, William Tatem. A Cardiff shipping magnate, philanthropist and racehorse owner, William James Tatem was born in Devon, the son of Thomas Tatem, who died the year he was born. The young William, aged 12, signed on and sailed on a voyage around the Cape Horn. He later entered the office of a Cardiff ship owner, gradually building up his own business, and was described as a cabin boy to millionaire. Created a baronet in 1916 and later a peer, he was killed in a German air raid in 1942. So the next footage you'll see of the wreck is Jim by the stem, the very front of the Braunton. The hull plates have gone towards the top of the ship, leaving just the stem, which Jamie is tied onto. The ship lays over on its port side with the bow to the west. This is a real favourite of all the fishermen. You can see why with all the bass, pollock and congers that are on this ship. The only downside of all that is the amount of fishing line that's strewn around. It's a real spider's web. I was swimming over what's probably one of the forward holds. It's all sort of collapsed in. It was heavily salvaged. I think it was identified by Risdon Beasley, the famous marine salvage chap. He salvaged it in 1977, and I think it was him that first identified it. R.J. Todd, who was a skipper of one of the New Haven salvage boats, he was salvaging it in the same year in 1977, soon after Risdon Beasley finished with it. I think that's possibly a fire hose there, and then just coming into view now is probably one of the cables for one of the many cranes and winches. You'd have to have a look at the model and try and work it out for yourself, because I can't tell you what all this stuff is. So the whole place was all sort of fallen over on its side, and the sort of ship's collapsed in on itself. Probably the most interesting part of the ship is the engines and boilers. Triple expansion engine with three quite large boilers. We could only find 2 boilers the first time we dived it, and on the second dive we found that its third boiler is actually sitting in front of the 2 boilers next to the engine. Not quite sure how we missed it because they're pretty big. Neil Moore's book, World War I Channel Wrecks, is the only information I could find out about the Braunton sinking. It sank by UB-29, and in 1916 censorship would have restricted anyone saying too much about it. Neil Moore would have probably come across the information from Admiralty weekly reports from coastal stations, which are now in the care of the Public Records Office at Kew. So how did she end up off Beachy Head? Well, having travelled all the way from Nova Scotia, Braunton's first stop was Boulogne. From there she was to cross the channel and make her way round the British coast to Newport. It was 1:30 p.m. when she slipped out of Boulogne on the high water, and the master followed his route instructions to the letter. The crossing went well until the ship was off Beachy Head. The steamer had lights on, but at half power. Without any warning, there was an explosion in number 4 and 5 holds, causing the ship to shudder and start to settle down. The engines were ordered full astern in a bid to slow her while the boats were launched. With all the crew accounted for, the boats pulled clear of the stricken ship. As they did so, the Braunton sank down by the stern and in a few moments was gone. The crew was spotted soon after by a patrol boat and all taken to Newhaven. Although there is no mention in the records of any submarine or torpedo being spotted by the crew, the sinking of the Braunton is listed in the Admiralty as torpedoed. German records say she was torpedoed by UB-29. The only other information I could find that's not mentioned is that the Braunton stayed afloat for an hour and then turned turtle. Captain George Burden Sherburne and the second officer remained on board until the last minute and had to jump into the sea to save their own lives, afterwards being picked up by one of their own boats. There's one of the few things I recognise on this ship. It's one of the boilers. It's one of the other things I recognise on this ship. It's Basildon Bond, also known as Jim, just swimming up over the top of one of the many winches. Braunton was carrying a cargo of 1,800 tonnes of government stores, including shells and shell cases. Government store seems to have been an umbrella term for anything to and from World War I. Shell cases would have been reused, filled with cordite and new projectiles fitted. I'd like to take credit for that bit of information, but that actually came from the Stigs diving cousin. We're back now with Basildon Bond at the 3-cylinder triple expansion Blair & Co engine. You can get a real sense of the scale there with Basildon swimming right next to him. Huge great things. You can see there how the ship's pitched over to one side. I promised Heather in the cafe a lobster last year, but I never got her one, so I took this one for her. He was tangled up in a bit of fishing line, he wasn't going anywhere, so he'd started to cannibalise that other one. He was real tangled up and too far gone. We're not sure what that was. We both thought perhaps it was up on the deck as a skylight, if it had glass in it perhaps. I've just come into view now as part of those government stores. These are all the shells. Yeah, there's thousands of them scattered all over the place. Nothing of them, they're just empty steel cases. I think this is one of the final dives we did on the wreck. I just stayed down around the engines and was just sort of getting some shots of the fish with the light coming through all the connecting rods and the engine. The tide was picking up a bit, you can see by all the sediment flowing past. This was a huge conger. I needed Basildon Bond there really to give it sort of some sense of scale, but it was escaping from the large lobster that was about to get him. Well, nowadays it's somewhat frowned upon to be taking things from wrecks. Lift bags can only be used with a licence unless you are sending up something which hasn't been down very long, like a lost anchor or a lobster in your goodie bag. We'll only take from unknown wrecks to hopefully find clues to its identity. So those who have collected brassy bits in the past are a bit reluctant to be shown on camera talking about them. Monsieur Le Plunderer did agree to show off some of his brass that was collected from the wreck of the Braunton. Now all 29 crew of the Braunton survived, and it was heavily salvaged in the past back in the 1970s. Well, what can I say? Apologies to any Pinkos or French people who may be watching. I give you Monsieur Le Plunderer. Do you have a licence?
Bonjour. Je suis Monsieur Le Plunderer. The boutique divers have asked me to show you some of my treasure. from the Braunton steamship. The first item is this nice pressure gauge. I go down the shut line, and then the first thing I see is this. It's nice. The second thing I find, oh, excusez-moi, is this, is the repeater. Very, very nice. They go in the goodie bag. On this, I find all these items on the same dive. Also find the, got the banding on the ordnance. I also have this. What can that be, you may ask? Well, she will reveal. It is the engine room telegraph. Oh, it's very big. It's very difficult. It's to extract. Is ground is enormous. Is very heavy. I had to roll it out of the wreck, and oh, I left that lifting bag down there again. Take 652. It's very, very nice. This is all clean, all nice and clean. It has the concretion. The Robert, could you show the picture of the concretion? See here somewhere. So it's ground enormous. So I have much problems rolling it out, rolling it through the wreck, because it is inside the wreck. So I roll it outside, and then I put the lifting bags on, two. You cannot use these anymore unless you have a license. So goodbye the lifting bags, goodbye the telegraphs. But as I put some air in the lifting bags, I look at my air gauge, and I look at the decompression time, and how you say I soil my pants. My undercrackers, is that the right word? So I go for surface. As on the boat, I ask Gavin. He's very kindly goes down and recovers the telegraph. So it's very, 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 very nice. Yeah, so that is the Braunton from the plunderer, Monsieur le plunderer. Perhaps I'll show you some more treasure from some other wrecks. And au revoir.